Hello everyone, and welcome back to my reaction series to Arcane Season 2. Today we're going to be reacting to Episode 5, or Episode 2 of Act 5, or whatever you want to call it. Episode 5 of Season 2. I'm super excited. This is the same day that I recorded the reaction to Episode 4, and I really can't stop myself from getting into Episode 5. I don't know if I'll be able to do the discussion after this because my throat and my voice is failing me a little bit. We'll see, but I do want to at least watch and react to the episode, so we're going to do that. If I can't do that, you'll just see me with a different shirt and recording the discussion on a different day, that's all. But before we get into Episode 5, now that we're roughly halfway through the season, which feels insane, but now that we are here, I wanted to really quickly give my top 3 MVP characters of Season 2 so far, and just kind of talk about my overall ranking for the characters so far. Now, there are a lot of honorable mentions this season. I think many characters have been good, I think some have been great, but there are 3 to me that stand out above the rest. But for the honorable mentions, we have Jace, who I think really has been kind of in the background, kind of a support character, not really a super prominent protagonist as he was by this point in Season 1, which I think is a good contrast for balance. Despite being the biggest Jace fan in the world, I think this is fine to give him more of a backseat. I would like him to come more into prominence down the line, maybe this episode, maybe next, but hey, I'm okay with his role so far, and I think there's been some really interesting subtext there. I think there's been some very heartbreaking things about his character arc, particularly through how he just grasps onto anything to show some sort of progress or some sort of light for him, so much so that even though Victor is so different and so clearly inhuman and tainted, and bereft of affection and empathy and compassion, he latches on to that, the fact that he's alive and that he maybe was able to save him without looking at what he's become. And then how he goes back and ends up building weapons for this horrible war, quote unquote. And then his words of, "I've never asked for this." He had this awesome false corruption arc in Season 1, and now he's just adrift, and I hope he finds himself soon. I hope he comes more into prominence and gets a bit more spotlight soon, as I am sure he will, because he's one of the most important characters in this story. But as for now, he has been good, and is just an honorable mention. A second honorable mention would be Victor. The only reason he's not in the top 3, really, is because the other 3 have had more spotlight. Victor's pretty much only been in 1 episode out of the 4 I've seen. That alone was really interesting, really compelling, really emotional, and really stuck out to me, but that's all he's got so far. He's had 1 episode, and that isn't enough to make him top 3 out of the 4 episodes so far. But he's been awesome. I think he's going to be pivotal and central to this story in Season 2, and I can't wait to see where his story goes. So Victor's an honorable mention as well. Then there's Vi, who I think has been really great, and again, similar to Jace, kind of adrift, a little bit lost. I talked a lot about her character arc in my discussion of Episode 3 and why I think it's really good, and how she really has to find herself, kind of in the way that Jinx has found herself recently in Episode 4, at least to an extent. And yeah, the foundation's been laid. I've been really invested in her so far, but I think her moments are to come. And last on my list would be Savika. I just think she's all around a great support character, a great really great dynamic with Jinx so far. The way that she's been grieving Silco has been understated compared to Jinx, but still very effective. Great expressiveness, great voice acting. I just think Savika's been great. She's been what I wanted her to be after Season 1. I'd be down for her to get even more centrality in the narrative, but I've been really happy with her so far. Then there's characters like Singed, Heimerdinger, Echo, who have been doing important stuff, specifically Singed, but haven't really had prominence yet, though Singed was really fun last episode. And then Warwick, big unknown factor right now, so we'll see where he goes. Mel's been good when she's been there, but again, just need a bit more from her, and I'm sure the story will give it to her. And I also want to shout out Solo, who's had a more interesting role in Season 2 compared to Season 1. I like how he's been used as sort of a pawn, the little bits of introspection. I've been a fan of how he's been used. Very minor, though, just worth a footnote. Now, if we get into my top 3, my actual top 3 most impressive characters this season. This isn't for the show overall, but these are my 3 favorite characters this season so far. Number 3 would be Caitlyn. I just think her change in character was very obvious in hindsight, but I didn't really predict the extent of it until we got to episode 1. And it's been very hard-hitting, very human, very drastic, but at the same time organic, and very sort of cautionary and indicative of how these sorts of figures, these sort of dictatorial leaders, these militaristic, nationalistic leaders, come into prominence. A lot of the time, it's really a slippery slope. It's a cautionary tale of how one can become lost on the side of an ideal that you don't really hold for the sake of some other motive. In this case, hers being vengeance and grief, and how that can be exploited by my number 2. But before we get to that, I just want to say, Caitlyn's been awesome, been really interesting, really engaging, showing all the things she needs to show about these sorts of, how these sorts of ideologues or these sorts of leaders come into prominence a lot of the time, or how she specifically has come into prominence, and showed a really dark path, and something that cannot really be, like, there's no two ways about it. She has done some horrible things already, but there's enough nuance there such that she's still human, she's still Caitlyn, and you still wish for her to change things, make a change before it's too late. But my number 2 has been probably the most impressive elevation of a character, and that is Ambessa. I went on this whole spiel last episode, so I won't repeat that, but she has just impressed me so much with the complexity, the layers, the humanity, the nuance, the emotions, and how that juxtaposes how amazingly astute she is, how powerful, this aura of power around her, this conqueror who is not only powerful and strong, but incredibly intelligent, puppeteering things, manipulating things, exploiting things, willing to do horrible things for the sake of what she cares about. Ambessa is amazing, and she's been the most elevated character in Season 2. But sneaking into number 1 is Jinx. She was awesome in the first couple of episodes she was in, 2 and 3. Very emotional, incredible stuff. But her role in episode 4 really brought so much together for me. So emotional, so impacting. Her relationship with Isha and Savika, and how she realizes and sort of coalesces and reconciles the two fragmented parts of herself, Powder and Jinx, and where they meet and who she is and what she values. How she's starting to realize that, and how she changed her death wish to, I might as well die because I don't care, into, I will die for that which I care about. She's already had this magnificent arc after grieving for Silco in Season 2, and I can't wait to see where it goes, but at the same time, I'm a little scared. So, number 1, Jinx, number 2, Ambessa, number 3, Caitlyn. Just a quick note, again, these aren't my favorite, this isn't my top 3 in the whole show. This is just in terms of the character writing and execution of Season 2. I'm really curious about how my overall ranking will change from the end of Season 1 to the end of Season 2. For anyone who doesn't remember, I did a whole tier list, and my top 5 was 1 Jace, 2 Silco, 3 Victor, 4 Jinx, 5 Vi, 6 Mel, then it was like Vander, Echo, Caitlyn, Marcus, Heimerdinger, something like that. Ambessa, eventually. Savika somewhere in there too. The list is out there. And I wouldn't really change that in the years since then, except Jinx would be number 3 instead of Victor. Victor would be 4, Jinx would be 3. But that list, I imagine, is going to change. Jace and Silco's top 2 spots are at risk. They really are, and Jace's top spot is definitely at risk if things keep going how they're going. I digress. That's my little mid-season recap of my character rankings. Yeah, let's just go. Let's get into it. Episode 5 of Arcane Season 2, Blisters and Bedrock. Very interesting title. Sorry, I've got tea here today for my throat. Hope you don't mind. Oh, that's the Enforcer? That's the guy whose jaw Vi broke. Oh, that is... Has she broken it again? Holy shit. Wow. Yeah, Vi is stagnant. Jesus Christ, man. And this guy's with her. Oh. Oh. Yeah, this is nothing new for Vi. Cyclical. Oh. She cannot get out of this stagnant cycle.
Looking good, sis. Wait, just...
Oh, I thought that was a dream. Holy shit.
It's Vander.
I'm not falling for another one of your tricks.
He's alive.
Right into it. Holy shit. The cracked mirror, just like Jinx's mirror in Season 1.
He needs our help. I can prove it.
Post Warwick attack. Huh. This is just like she scoped out the crime scene in episode 4, the beginning of episode 4 of Season 1. Oh, beautiful.
I'd begun to think we might finally see an end to Zorn's perverse abominations. The beast came for you. It was summoned by you.
In my experience, only guilty men answer accusations with silence.
In my experience, no one in power is innocent.
There are cells buried deep within the...
That line is interesting. No one in power is innocent.
Tell us everything we need to know to hunt down this beast.
You will rot in here.
What is this guy planning? He is not rattled in the slightest. Oh shit. Oh my gosh. Reminds me of something Heimerdinger said in episode 2 of season 1. Prison's a conundrum because the body is imprisoned, but the mind is free. But her...
Find these quarters to your liking. They still haven't replied to my request for a transfer.
Who's there?
Her mind is not free at all.
No anymore. Scrambling your omelet.
Is that her brother? Do we know for sure her brother was killed?
Step into the light.
It is her. I think it is.
Kino. It's me, brother. Mel.
Mel, you've grown up. I'd hoped they'd never come for you.
So, did Ambessa just assume him dead? That's interesting. Why was he kept alive? This is crazy. Jinx and Vi working together with an alive Vander waiting somewhere. Oh, man. And Isha looks so much like Powder. Look at that. This is too happy for Arcane. And it's not even happy. It's actually pretty miserable. It's so cute. So cute. There's no way Vi doesn't see powder in Isha. Oh man, the vibes are not. I don't
Why
know.
the hell would Vander be all the way down here? That this is just another one of your fantasies? Or do you not want the kid to know how delusional you are?
She wasn't always like this. Wish I was just seeing things when you decided to throw him with the pilty goons who murdered Mom and Dad.
Well, at least they never had to see the psycho their daughter turned into.
Which one?
Oh no.
I'm a hero. I busted half of Zahn out of Stillwater while you were passed out in the bottom of a mug.
You wouldn't last 1 second without all your ugly gadgets and chicken shit tricks.
You're the one who told them. Oh man, it's so sad to see them now. It's so sad to see them now. Vi's the one who encouraged her to. Vi's the one who encouraged her to do it in the first place, to use those gadgets in the first place.
Last chance to surrender!
Hey, kid. Still got all your insides?
Oh man. It's got to bring up memories of how she hit powder at the end of episode 3, season 1.
Why'd you come get me? You don't actually need my help. You haven't for a long time.
Last time Vander needed us, we tried it alone, and nothing was ever the same. So, maybe this is like a do-over. Besides, he's your father too.
Milo and Clagger's line. I think it was Milo's line. The parallels are insane between these two seasons.
I've been expecting you.
Confident, aren't you?
It's always the same look when one covets a weapon. No beast is more savage than man. I trust you have
True.
You will serve me. My enemies will be yours. Your weapons will be mine. In return, I will supply all your needs. You will be treated as an esteemed advisor, but I demand absolute loyalty.
What did he just say about power? I don't know if he'll... Is he?
He was once a man, well respected at that. Victim of great tragedy. With him, I was able to make strides impossible with any other specimen. But the mind I could not recover. The man forever lost in the bowels of the beast.
Oh, Silco.
Compelled only by the scent of blood.
But not actually, though. Not actually.
So I thought.
Oh.
It now seems I had yet to uncover the right catalyst.
Blisters and Bedrock.
She believes you're dead.
I do like to disappoint her.
How did you wind up here?
She didn't tell you.
He crossed the wrong
I
man?
started hearing strange rumors about Mother. Different than the usual kind. They said, many years ago, she passed through their hometown and fell in love.
That's not our mother.
Indeed, but the more I inquired, the more I started believing it. The affair led to a child.
That's impossible.
It is the reason we are here. Whatever that child inherited is of terrible interest to our captors.
This episode is...
This will allow you to locate your
I keep
base.
lingering on a thought, and then I have to move on.
Commander.
General. The curious dismissal of a revered Academy alchemist. Unparalleled, By all accounts,
He's talked about his relationship with Heimerdinger before.
no mention of his crime.
About a disagreement.
Who invented Shimmer? We have our answer now, don't we? Dr. Revik. Why do all this?
Why does anyone commit acts others deem unspeakable?
Like Ambessa. For family, for love.
For love.
Like Caitlyn. Like Ambessa.
Everything I've done is to cure her. I believe the beast may hold the final key.
Precisely what are you trying to cure?
That affliction we all suffer. Death. Imagine a world that no longer need fear it.
Oh boy.
I deserve to know the truth.
Of course. Makes you wonder why she kept this from you, doesn't it? For all these years?
I'm missing something.
A healthy sense of self-preservation, I'd say.
You aren't my brother.
That makes much more sense. But is the story true? I guess the story's gotta be true.
We had such high hopes for him.
At first, it seemed plausible that he could have been the child.
It is true, yeah.
But then your mother led us to you, sister.
What? Oh. Seems like gauntlets.
What is it?
A message from Vander.
To Silco. Silco.
I've looked everywhere, but it's clear you don't want to be found. God, I'm shit at this. I'm sorry. When she died, I lost my head. I told myself what I did to you was for the greater good, that you deserved it. But the dirt was on both our hands. Anyway, you know where to find me. Blisters and Bedrock. V.
If he found this, everything might have been different.
Oh. The way she reaches out for her and then stops herself. Those are the little margins, right? If these two could have communicated in a different way, everything would have been different.
We have to get out of here.
It's him. It's Vander.
That's not Vander!
It is! Something's got him riled up. No! Vander, no! It's me!
Oh.
Don't hurt him!
The visuals, what the hell?
God, it's him. You have to believe me.
What's the occasion?
Can't a lady just be in the mood for a familiar song?
Not this lady.
Oh my god.
Not this song.
I have chills. This is a song from episode 2. Look, it's Silco.
Tonight, a harebrained scheme these two bozos cooked up to turn a dank crack in the earth into a thriving, healthy community became a reality.
Tonight, eh? You hear that, Bozo 2? We made it. We're done.
Oh, you're sadly mistaken. I'm Bozo 1.
I'm knocked up. Wasn't really part of my plan, but guess that's everything when you're living week to week.
What did Connell say?
I haven't told him.
Hey, you're gonna be a great mother.
Shut up. I'm not ready for that. I can't protect her from all the shit down here and work out how to be a parent at the same time. Then I realized I don't have to.
Oh, what's that?
Because the second I told you, I put you on the hook. You two are gonna figure this Zon thing out.
Oh, man.
I don't care if you have to carve it out of the bedrock, covered it in blisters.
Oh, man.
You're not allowed to fail anymore. For her. For me.
What's the point if we can't raise an ankle biter or two?
To Zon, then. Blisters and Bedrock.
I've always liked the name Violet.
Wow. She wouldn't let them fail.
What are you waiting for? He's your dad, too.
Whew. Oh, is that Solo? No. Yeah. Jace. What? Yeah, it's Solo.
Solo? What are you doing here?
Jace. One could ask the same question.
How are you walking?
Who do you think could mend such a broken creature? Would you want to speak with him?
Jace. I'd feared I wouldn't have the chance to speak with you again.
Victor.
I suppose this is somewhat beyond where we left off.
Is Salo still in there?
Where else would I be? I owe Victor everything.
I have so many breakthroughs to share with you, Jace.
I thought you were done with Hextech. And me.
I was clouded by emotions. See what I've accomplished. I've helped so many.
This divinity is terrifying.
You've given Hextech to the people?
As we always promised we would.
Hextech isn't a miracle. It's a curse. We have to end it, Victor. We have to.
It's Heimerdinger and
something happened.
The duality of innovation in science and discovery.
Now I see it. You too have touched the Arcane. Your mind suffered.
I must return to him.
I can't let you leave.
I'm sorry you feel that way.
I'm sorry too.
What? What the fuck? What is this show? How the hell was that 40 minutes? What the fuck? That episode was so overwhelming. It hit on so many levels, and I'm kind of stunned, and I don't know how to make my thoughts coherent, but I'll do my best. Incredibly overwhelming. At this rapid pace, each scene would just tell you something incredibly revelatory or emotional or something that you want to sort of linger on, but then the next scene comes and you have to really focus on that. So it was very, it was a lot to take in, but at the end of it, I'm just left with such an appreciation for it. The emotional gut punch at the end, combined with the pure shock of the Victor Jace reunion, it has me floored still now. I took a few minutes to take a little break and just gather my thoughts, but I feel like I need another year to do so. Let's just go for it. Let's start at the end with Victor, Jace, Solo, and the Arcane. First of all, Solo should have seen that coming. It was noted earlier that there was someone who could maybe take care of his remedy, or his malady, rather, in the Undercity. It makes sense. We see what happened. He met with Victor. Victor healed him, healed his legs, kind of like he was healing himself in a way. Someone who had weakened use of his legs did the same for someone else, and Solo experienced this. It seemed to be touched by the Arcane as well. It seems like anyone that Victor touches, or heals rather, is touched by the Arcane as well, is devoid of humanity in a sense, of emotion, of affection. It's scary. It's scary. Victor is terrifying. Victor is so scary to me, and those he heals, these followers of his, this ironically heavenly imagery, white everywhere, dressed in these robes, they would traditionally, archetypally, you would presume them to be good and holy and righteous and comforting. But man, they're anything but. They're anything but. I'm terrified. Now, Jace comes back. We'll get to him in a second, but it really makes me wonder, after touching the Arcane, he has been through hell, and he has learned one major thing. Well, he's probably learned a lot, but the most important thing, is that it must be destroyed. It is not something that can exist, so he agrees, essentially, with what Heimerdinger said all that time ago. But now I'm wondering where Heimerdinger and Echo are, what they've experienced, what they're going through. I'm sure we'll see them soon. But Jace, just seeing what's happened to him is so sobering. The conviction with which he thinks this, he has seen some shit. Whatever he has seen, because the thing with Jace is, love him or hate him, I think most people can agree that he is indecisive, and I think that's a great strength of his character. I think that's a good strength of him being a leader in Season 1. Even though he's very flawed, one thing that I'll always give him credit for is that he absolutely works out the ramifications of every possible choice. He is much more likely to overthink something than to not think enough about it, but that does make him indecisive and very malleable to be formed for decisions to be made due to influence from others. Influence from Ambessa, from Mel, from Victor, from Heimerdinger, whoever. He has been very easily influenced because he's always indecisive. He weighs things so carefully, and he has trouble making decisions, with a couple of notable exceptions, particularly the one he makes in Episode 9, which is why his decision in Episode 9 is so impactful. I digress. Jace is indecisive as a person, but here, he knows without doubt the Arcane has to be destroyed. Solo, he cannot let him go out. He is dangerous. He smashes him with a hammer. R.I.P. King. You got really interesting towards the end, but cut too short. Incredible stuff. So efficient for Jace. So many things to gather from that. And it makes him so fascinating, and I can't wait to see where he goes from here. And then Victor, terrifying. Victor, who was touched by the Arcane, sees nothing but splendor and peace and the path to progress and enlightenment in it. And divinity. He thinks it's all positive. He's been touched by the Arcane, and he sees nothing but positivity, and he lets it in. Maybe letting it in is part of the reason that he's been able to kind of be possessed by it in some way, be beyond humanity, be bereft of humanity. I don't know. Regardless, Victor has seen the Arcane as something positive, whereas Jace has seen it as something horrible, extremely dangerous. And I wonder what the difference is. Because these two, in many ways, are kindred spirits. What are the differences? Firstly, Jace, it's their upbringing. Jace grew up middle class, more or less, but he never had the experience in the Undercity that Victor had. He never had the specific conviction that Victor had. The underdog mentality, constantly being told that he's lesser, constantly being at a disadvantage. Victor is much like Silco in that he has had to persevere beyond anything to get where he got. And so Victor has a unique sort of perseverance, a unique sort of desire for his goal, to leave a mark on history that will benefit those he cares about, or the places he cares about. And even though that affection is gone, I think the sentiment remains through what Sky maybe guides him to. So I think it's that specific conviction that Jace can't really relate to, that is being exploited here. Exploitation is a big theme of this season, but now they are enemies, it really seems like. We have these sibling enemy dynamics. We have Silco Vander, Victor Jace, these two brothers who disagree on this fundamental thing, on the direction forward, and seem to have to be fated to come to blows. It's heartbreaking. And then we have Vi and Jinx, who I really hope won't go in that direction. And then by extension, reflecting Vi and Powder, we have Jinx and Isha. It's these generations of siblings, whether it be blood or otherwise, that go against each other. But one last thing about this little plot line, this last scene that I want to talk about is that the decision that Jace makes. Yeah, we get it. He sees the Arcane through the Wild's Rune, whatever the hell is going on with that. He decides that it should not exist, it's too dangerous. Right, we get that. But just think about the profundity of what he did there. Jace fell in love with the Arcane. It saved its life. Magic saved his life. And so he dedicated his entire life to it, to sharing it with the world, to sharing Hextech with the world. It became a core part of his identity, so much so that when he was confronted with the idea of being separated from it, of not being able to pursue it and share it with the world, he almost killed himself. Victor saved him. Now, he is looking at that very thing that he thought was life-saving, that he formed his identity around, that he wanted to pursue, and now he's saying it needs to be eliminated from the world. Not a question in his mind. It is really heartbreaking to me that it's become this bastardization of what it stood for in the first place. In some ways, he's had to grow up rapidly. He's had to kill a part of himself. But there's no doubt in his mind. This conviction to destroy this, it's honestly impressive beyond words to me. This Victor Jace stuff is going to tear me apart going forward. I can't wait to see where it goes, and I'm terrified. Now let's get to the Mel stuff. I don't think I have a ton to say in terms of deeper characterization stuff, but there are some revelations here. So it looks like, from what I'm understanding... Oh, by the way, R.I.P. Alora, she was cool. We lost 2 real tertiary characters this episode. So what it seems like is what happened. Ambessa fell in love with someone, had a child with this unknown man. This person is for one reason or another, in the Black Rose's crosshairs, or they know of him, or he's important in some way. And it seems like Kino was looking into this. That's assuming that what we heard was the truth. Maybe it wasn't, but just the way that the episode's structured and the way this plot is flowing, I think that's probably the truth. And they acquired that information from Kino in the past. Kino was looking into it. The Black Rose were curious about the child. They thought it might be Kino, so they kidnapped him, questioned him, and then ultimately it seems they killed him. Ambessa looked at it as him crossing the wrong people. Or at the very least, that's what she told Mel. But it turns out he wasn't the child. Ambessa was racked by grief at it. This sort of keys into her conversation with Caitlyn about knowing they're out there, doing whatever you can to protect your family. It all sort of clicks into place with these specifics. So in response to this, Ambessa needs to wield Piltover's power to get back at Black Rose. Then Black Rose kidnaps Mel using their powers, wondering if she's the child, and at this moment, we don't know if she's the child, but it might. Her eyes started glowing. I don't know what the hell was going on with that. So that's pretty much what's been laid out here. It makes sense to me. It's really interesting. The characteristics of what this means for Mel interest me a lot. And it contextualizes Ambessa a lot. So I really like this backstory. I'm glad that it was given to us. Cool stuff. And seeing Kino, even if he was kind of being spoken through, if it wasn't really him, was cool. It was interesting. Shoutouts to one of my friends for kind of laying out everything we learned there for me so I could get my thoughts in order. So yeah, fascinating. We'll see where it goes. Love the plot details. Doesn't make me think much differently about any of the characters just yet, because I don't think it changes anything about their psychology or adds many new layers. But like I said, it contextualizes a lot of things and adds some more complexions to Ambessa, which I'm a fan of, as well as their whole family stuff, their whole family conflict, more lore to the Black Rose, which is much needed. Caitlyn, don't have a ton to say about Caitlyn in this episode, but things keep ticking over nicely for her. Again, not afraid to stand up to Ambessa. Again, scary. She learned about Singed. She was willing to torture him for what he did. Just more, like I said, it keeps things ticking along for Caitlyn. The real star of the stuff with her plotline for me was Singed. Lots of contextualizing stuff for him. Basically, the core... Well, firstly, let me just say, he says something really interesting about power, that basically anyone who comes into power is inherently corrupt or bad. I don't remember the exact phrasing, but essentially, no one who has a substantial amount of power or a notable amount of power is innocent. And that applies very nicely to this season particularly. Look at everyone who's in power here, in one way or another. Material power, spiritual power, just influence. That rings true everywhere in the show. But what we learn about him is that he's done something that we may have surmised already, but that he confirms. He's done everything for love, just like the two women he was talking to, just like a lot of characters in the series, but in particular, the two women he was talking to when he said it. Why does anyone do unspeakable things? For love. Just like Ambessa and Caitlyn can relate to. But we learn that he has been doing everything here. Research into Shimmer, it seems like. These experiments. Somehow, Warwick is the key in some way, could have some really important information. I say Warwick, I want to say Vander, because to me that's Vander. Even though he's a beast, whatever. For Singed's daughter. Everything was done for her. She was met with some horrible tragedy and has since been suspended in some sort of coma state, and he wants to resurrect her. He is seeking the answer to defeating death. He reflects so many important messages and ideas of the work, and he has so many interesting dynamics with so many characters now, with Caitlyn and Ambessa, with Silco, having worked with him, with Heimerdinger and the different sides of the spectrum to how they view science. A bit of with Singed and Heimerdinger, there's a bit of a Victor Jace sort of thing there. Whereas Jace used to stand on the side of progress when it came to the Arcane, and Heimerdinger was on the other side, he is now firmly where Heimerdinger was, having witnessed something. And Victor is very much on Singed side of things. It's fascinating. And all the stuff with the daughter, it keeps building upon daughters in this series, doesn't it? Silco and his daughter Jinx. Vander and his daughter Vi and Powder. Singed and his daughter. Marcus and his daughter. Is there anything so undoing as a daughter? Anyways, as we get towards the end of the discussion points, we have Vi and Jinx. Let's start with Vi. My heart goes out to her. It's an incredibly stagnant, cyclical, repetitive, intentionally repetitive, monotonous character character journey. It's not really an arc. She's not able to change in any way. Vi is in this cyclical torment of try to protect people, try to act, try to gain some power and influence to protect those you love, fail, see them change into something unrecognizable, or see them die, lash out. The need to do something and lash out, to express her frustrations in one way or another, to just feel something. It's a constant for her. It's there in episode 1, in episode 3, in episode 5. With the fight with Savika, episode 9. We saw it earlier in the season and we see it now. The need to do something, but there's never progress. Just once again, I'm going to be adding a couple of things in post here. Something about Vi that I didn't mention during the discussion is that we've talked in discussions up till now about how Season 2 of Arcane in some ways mirrors Season 1, in some ways is different from it. Either way, it plays off of the structure of Season 1 in really fun ways. So, like, for example, the first episode of Season 1 was all about Zaun and the Undercity. And episode 2 was about Piltover and Jace's point of view, whereas it was reversed in the first 2 episodes of this, whereas the first episode was all about those in Piltover, and Caitlyn, and Jace, and as a result, Vi. But then in episode 2, we have Jinx and Savika and Isha, and the fallout from Silco's death, and Victor. So that's an example of how it plays off of the structure of Season 1, and in that way contrasts it. One way in which it's similar to it, and which it mirrors it, is that something horribly tragic happens to Vi in episode 3. Now, I don't want to power scale tragedy, but I think it's fair to say that the tragedy of what happened to her in episode 3 of Season 1 was more powerful and gutting than what happened to her in Season 2, Episode 3. But nonetheless, she experiences something traumatic and very, very upsetting, and then she's gone in Episode 4 in both seasons. Then in Episode 5, she comes back and has just, in both cases, been absent, gone through a sort of transformation. In Season 1, it's because she was in prison for years, and gotten stronger. In Season 2, it's because she's been doing these fights and has been getting, again, stronger, though that's just physically. Because mentally, psychologically, I think she's the most brittle she's ever been. And I just think it's really cool because the show integrates Vi's cyclical character arc in the way that she can't get out of these cycles of self-hatred and regret, and then lashing out and needing to act in some way, and therefore using an outlet, lashing out physically in a lot of ways through what she was doing in prison, through what she was doing through the fights here, how she hit Powder, how she was fighting Savika throughout Season 1, stuff like that. And it uses the structure of Season 2 and how it plays off of the structure of Season 1 and Vi's absence and how it plays into that to show her sort of cyclical character progression or lack thereof. I just think it's really clever. I think it's worth paying attention to or making note of, and I just wanted to talk about it here. Additionally, there were really good details throughout the whole episode between the two sisters, and I guess how things have changed, who they are, where they've come from, where they are now, and just contrasting their journeys and exemplifying the depth and profundity of their relationship. For example, there's bits of affection, bits of hatred, bits of resentment, and bits of love everywhere. Like, it's so conflicting. And one of the details I really liked is very small but very sort of adorable and warm, is that when Vi's waking up, Jinx is writing on her face her name Jinx underneath her eye in the very same way that Vi has a tattoo that says her name under her eye. She's still like her little sister. She's still trying to be like her big sister in some ways. And then there's also the cracked mirror and Vi seeing herself in it and her fractured state of mind reflecting Jinx's iconic shot of the cracked mirror in Season 1. They're more alike than you would assume, or they would assume, and there's still lots of empathy that they can share with one another. But then later in the cave, I just want to draw attention to this. It's tragic because Vi has so much resentment for Jinx, right? And she calls her a psycho. She says that she's insane. She says that her tricks are stupid and her devices and gadgets are chicken shit and dumb. And the thing that kills me is that Powder had those insecurities about herself. She was very reclusive. She just worked on these devices and these experiments or whatever. And I think Milo and maybe others would make fun of her, and she maybe thought herself that they were stupid. But who was the person to encourage her to keep doing this, and that this was a part of her identity, and that it was beautiful, and that she wasn't weird or insane or anything like that? Vi. She encouraged her to keep buying into the type of person she was, and to see beauty in that. And now here, so far down the line, she's making fun of it, in the same way that she defended, she's sort of being the same sort of person that her former self defended Powder from, and that's heartbreaking to me. She tried to teach Jinx to imagine, or Powder to imagine, and dream, and be unique, and now she's deriding her for the same thing. And obviously, I'm not saying that Vi is, a horrible person for doing this. I think it's very human that she resents her in this way. I just think it's a great example of showing how far their relationship has devolved. But there's still hope, and I think that's really important, because there's a beautiful little interaction in the episode. Vi says, "You don't need my help, and you haven't for a long time," before asking why she asked her to come, why Jinx asked her to come, and Jinx later says, he's your father too. But I want to really hone in on what Vi says, because I think the other line speaks for itself, and it's beautiful, and I talked about it, and will talk about it later. But, Vi saying, "You don't need my help, you haven't for a long time." Think about the way that she feels powerless, and she's tried to protect people in her life. First and foremost, Jinx/Powder. She's tried to protect her, and she has learned that she is powerless from her perception to stop the people she cares about from changing, going down these miserable paths, from experiencing agony themselves, and she has despaired over that. So I think the fact that she admits, "You don't need my help and you haven't for a long time," really feeds into her helplessness and the gutting tragedy of her arc, the sort of spiral, the helpless spiral, the self-hatred at her lack of power. And that's really tragic, but really well done. And then Jinx says, "The last time we went alone," before saying the thing about Vander, "the last time we went alone, things went bad. Maybe this is a do-over." And this shows the belief that she has, largely thanks to Isha, a belief in Powder, a belief in Jinx, in all that she is, that things can be better. And it's crazy considering how she is here, compared to where she was at the beginning of the season. But she's learned to believe, thanks to Isha, thanks to Savika, thanks to her own strength, and I think thanks to things going better at Stillwater in the heist to reflect the end of Act 1 of Season 1, where they failed to rescue Vander, people died, Jinx viewed herself as someone who failed, but here she saved Isha and she succeeded, so I think she sees a lot more hope in the world that maybe things can be different, maybe we can stop the cycle. It's heartbreaking for Vi. And she is haunted by Jinx, she's haunted by Caitlyn, but crazy. It felt unreal that this happened. Jinx with Isha, who now so closely resembles Powder, the helmet being incredibly reminiscent, the blue hair, oh man, reaches out to her and says that Vander is alive and is here, which obviously is something that Vi, that would mean a lot to Vi. And something that kills me is, in episode 6 of Season 1, when Vi first sees Jinx, Jinx says, "Are you real?" And in this episode, total different complexion, but Vi says, "Are you real?" Throughout these 5 episodes and discussions, I've been seeing parallels everywhere. I'm sorry, you probably get sick of me pointing out all these parallels, but I got to. But just seeing the two girls fight, it's heartbreaking, and what stops it is Isha, who is trying to defend Jinx from Vi, and Vi lashes out and hits her, and she's bleeding from the nose, just like she hit Powder in episode 3. Definitely brings back memories of that for both of them, as Jinx goes and comforts her, and Vi, she kind of just stops herself there. And there's no way she doesn't see Powder there, and she doesn't see herself a little bit in Jinx, and it just gives her pause. It's surreal. It's such a surreal development. But man, is it effective between the two girls, the two sisters. And it really makes you hope that their relationship doesn't turn out like Vander's and Silco's did. Like Victor's and Jace's probably will. I've reserved this last spot for talking about everything to do with Vander, Blisters and Bedrock. What a title. I had no idea what it was referring to at first. Now it was said by Felicia, Vi's mom, Blisters and Bedrock. That is the method through which, grit, hard work, and they'll make Zaun an independent, recognized nation, city, whatever you want to call it, for kids to grow up in. To me, it represents this sort of idealism that Victor and Silco shared, this sort of common link that through grit and sweat and hard work and blood, sweat, and tears, and just pure perseverance, idealistically, if you're being hopeful, the results will come. I think that's something a lot of the characters in this series can relate to, and a lot of characters in this episode. And I'm sure there's more to it that I'm just not thinking of in the moment, but how resonant is that, right? Let me just touch on the flashback. Heartbreaking. So heartbreaking to see these three characters who were torn apart. One murdered by enforcers. The other two at each other's throats. Both unrecognizable from what they were. Both reborn in different ways. It's just tragic to see this idealistic past of these young people who were so bright-eyed and had such hope. And I think they still did. I don't think Vander stopped hoping. I don't think Silco stopped hoping, but they weren't able to fulfill that promise of making this a world that Vi and Powder eventually could grow up in, safe, for Felicia. It's heartbreaking, and there are such little details that I loved. Seeing Silco in this state, this much more lighthearted state before he was racked by trauma and tragedy. The dynamic between the three of them was just to die for. It was beautiful. And for a second, honestly, the way that Vander looked at Felicia, the way that Felicia was kind of dancing, for a second, I thought they were about to reveal that Vi was Vander's daughter somehow. They had some chemistry. There was some looks there. He said he liked the name Violet, and what color is Felicia's hair? I mean, but yeah, I don't think that's the case. I don't think that's the case. I just thought it for a brief second. There were also some interesting, really warm, loving glances from Silco to Felicia as well. But I think that's just like me getting too angsty. But how beautiful is it that Vander names Vi? The Vi who tries to carry on his torch, who is his spiritual successor, who is his daughter. Not by blood, but blood doesn't matter in this sense. She is his daughter, and he named her. There's something unbelievably beautiful about that. But also, we see now that both men at that bar named both of her kids. Both of Felicia's kids. Vander named Vi, and Silco, I don't know if he actually gave her the name Jinx, but he, by all intents and purposes, gave her the identity, the rebirth of Jinx. There's this common theme in this episode and throughout Arcane of people changing. Vander changing when he gets the shimmer, changing when he gets turned into this beast, Silco being reborn, Powder into Jinx, and now again, this coalescence of the two. Vi changing, Caitlyn completely changing, Victor unrecognizable, with some key traits that are similar. Jace has changed a lot. Echo, they're characters who change for so many different reasons, but chief among them is what Singed said, love. And I'll touch on that one more time in a little bit, but I just wanted to get that out there. The last little detail I want to talk about is Silco. Felicia calls them both bozos, and Vander says jokingly to Silco, "Hey, bozo number 2," and Silco says, "I'm bozo number 1." It's a little joke, it's a little jab, but it's a hint of the character trait that we'd see later. This sort of underdog mentality, this need to claw himself up and be on top for the sake of whatever. A bit of an inferiority complex, understandably given where he's come from, but he shows it in that little joke there as well. In addition to all that I said about Silco, I also think maybe I'm missing something, but I think from what I can gather, he knew about Powder and Vi, or at least Vi's name. He was there when the name was given, so he likely knew about Felicia's kid's name. So he probably knew about Vi. I'm sure he probably knew about Powder. And what's interesting to me is that he sees them in Season 1, but just seems to have either forgotten or buried his connection to them, his emotional connection to them, indirectly, of course, because I'm not necessarily saying that he knew them while they were growing up as kids, and then as a result, like maybe when they were toddlers or something, and then as a result grew to love them. I'm not saying that, but what I'm saying is that he would have a connection to them because he had a connection to at least Felicia and Vander, who was a part of this whole thing as well. So you'd expect that he would recognize them, but he doesn't show any of that. So either he is so deep down his crusade that he has literally forgotten the children of one of the most important people in the world to him, or he's buried it and stopped himself from reacting because he felt that he had to cloud that sentiment for the sake of his goal, of his uprising. Either way, I think it's really interesting and adds a not super thick, but interesting layer of recontextualization to Silco and the way that he views Vi and Powder into Jinx in Season 1. I just thought that was interesting. And it reminds me of certain things about Hunter x Hunter, the latest manga chapters. Won't spoil, of course, but how he forgot or repressed having known them from the start. That's just really interesting to me. And then we have that letter from Vander to Silco about how much he regrets what he did, that we can only assume Silco didn't read, and how Jinx says things could have been totally different if you read that. The tiniest margins, you know? If Vi hadn't hit Jinx or Powder back in episode 3, or if she didn't run away, she never would have met Silco. Everything would have been different. If Silco found the letter, or if he read the letter, maybe they would have done it together. If Echo hadn't got the tip-off about Jace that caused Vi and everyone else to break into his apartment, which caused Vander to ultimately die, you know, if Victor had showed up a few seconds later, Jace may have killed himself, vice versa. If the blast had mortally wounded Jace instead of Victor. There are these margins everywhere, and these characters will go back and second guess and think about what could have been different if things happened differently. But ultimately, they've got the cards they've been dealt, and they've got to make do with them. But the last thing I want to talk about is that family hug, and we were talking about changes. All three characters, unrecognizable from the first act. But that doesn't matter. They're family, and they're together, and that is something that will never leave them. And in this moment, oh man, when Jinx sees them hugging and Vi tells her to get in there because he's your father too. Jinx said it earlier to her, and Vi says it back here, and it's something that Milo and Clagger said. And Jinx has been carrying the memories of Milo and Clagger with her. So I'd like to think that they're in this embrace too. And we have Isha as well join in. It is a moment that feels ephemeral. I can't imagine that it'll be as straightforward as Vander just re-ingratiating himself into the story and these girls' lives, and I can't imagine that the relationship between the three of them will stay like this. I can't imagine that Vi and Jinx will be able to be loving sisters again so easily. I can't imagine that Isha is out of the woods. I still think I see death flags for Isha, unfortunately. I think things are going to go bad from here. I don't know exactly how, but I'm dreading it, and in a peak fiction sort of way. But that's what makes this moment so beautiful. We can indulge in it for a moment, for a second, before hell breaks loose. I'm glad they at least had this. I'm glad the family was back together again for this moment. What a fantastic episode. I do gotta say, I could see how some may have issues with it being a little, like I kind of talked about it before, about the pacing being a bit frenetic, a bit kind of crazy. And it is a lot happening at a rapid pace, but I think as long as they're deliberate with it, I think it could work out. As of right now, I have no problems. If every episode is this frenetic and launches this many stuff at a breakneck pace, that could hurt the show a little bit. It could be a little bit of a critique for me. As of right now, I'm okay. We're good. We'll see the next episode, how things go. I'm expecting something monumental. What an episode. Fantastic stuff. Who would have thought that Vander would be elevated in this way for me? Great stuff. Amazing stuff. I love this show. Thank you so much for joining me for my reaction to episode 5. I hope you enjoyed the episode. I hope you enjoyed my thoughts. Please feel free to share yours. And if you'd like early access to episode 6's reaction, you can do so on Patreon. full length is available there as well. Thank you so much, guys. Many thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.